All right, so today we're going to be solving, adding, and subtracting inequalities. And we solve them the same way we do equations. But what's different is here, for an equation, we have x plus 3 equals 8. And remember, our goal here was to locate x. And we had to ask ourselves what we see we are doing to x. And then we have to solve by doing the opposite. So we see here we're adding 3 to both the equation and the inequality, right? Because here we see x plus 3 is greater than 8. So what this one is saying here is let's go ahead and solve. So we see a plus 3, so now we need to subtract 3 to both sides. So if we subtract 3 to this side, it gets rid of it. If we subtract 3 to this side, we get x equals 5. And when we graph that, we're going to put a closed circle over 5 because here x can only be 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. And that's the only thing that makes x true. With an inequality is you have several things that make x true. So let's see. If we subtract 3 to this side, it cancels out. And we're left with just x. If we subtract 3 to this side, we have 8 minus 3 is 5. Now, instead of putting an equal sign here like we do equations, we're going to put a greater than symbol. And what this means is x is greater than 5. So we would put an open circle above the 5 because it's not equal to 5. And then we would shade all the values to the right. See how the inequality tells us which way to shade? We would shade it all the way to the right. Anything that's greater than 5, we would shade on our graph because that means 6 is greater than 5, 7 is greater than 5, 8 is greater than 5, and so forth. So all these values could be true for x. Here, for an equation, you can only have one true value. For an inequality, you can have more than one. So let's go ahead and let's look at this. If the inequality has subtraction, right? Because we have minus 2 plus x is greater than 6. So here we actually have a negative 2. So the only way to get rid of a negative 2, because we have subtraction, is you have to use addition. So you have to add 2 to both sides, right? What we see is subtraction, so how we're going to solve is addition. So remember the side of x, everything goes away. You're left with just x on this side. Now we have that greater than, so x is greater than 6 plus 2, which is 8. So our solution is x is greater than 8. Now, when we graph this, which we're going to have to graph on the next one, we want to find 8 with an open circle above it, pointing in a greater than direction. So all these values that are greater than 8 should be shaded. So when we go to the next one, we're going to want to choose the open circle being shaded to the right. So we're going to want to choose that second one. All right, so let's look here. We have 3 plus x is less than or equal to 2. So we're going to see what we're doing, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to solve. We see that we are adding 3 to this x. So the inequality has addition. So I need to use blank, right? So we need to use subtraction to solve. So we're going to put subtraction, which means we're going to subtract 3 to both sides. We're going to subtract 3 to this side and subtract 3 to this side. Okay, let's go ahead and solve this. The side of x cancels out. We have just x on this side. We're going to repeat the inequality of a less than or equal to symbol. And 2 take away 3 is a negative 1. So we want the inequality that says x is less than or equal to 1. Now, when we graph this inequality, we want to see a dot above -1. We want this dot to be closed because it does have that partial equal sign. So we want it to be a closed dot. And since it's saying the inequality is reading x is less than or equal to -1, we want to shade in all the values that are less than 1. So you would want to shade to the left. And if you forget, the inequality points in the direction that it wants you to shade. So when you go to the next one, as you can clearly see here, you want that closed dot over 1 being shaded to the left. So you would choose A, or the first one. All right, let's try this again. We're going to see what we are doing to the x, and how we're going to solve it is going to be the opposite. So what we see is an add 6. So how we're going to solve is by subtracting 6. So the inequality has addition, so I need to use subtraction to solve it. So here we're going to put -6 on this side and -6 on this side of the inequality as well. The side of x is going to go away. 1 take away 6 is a -5. So here we want the inequality that x is less than, or sorry, just x is less than -5. Okay. Now, when we talk about shading it, again, you want this time, because there's no partial equal sign, you just want that open circle above the 5. And because it is red, x is less than, it's also pointing left. You want to shade in a less than direction. And again, if you forget, the inequality helps tells you which way to shade. So when you go to the next one, you're going to be looking for that open circle above the -5 being shaded to the left. So you're going to want to choose the third one down. Okay, last one we're going to do together. All right, again, we're going to write our see and solve. What is it that we see we are doing? And we're going to solve doing the opposite. So here we have x minus 8, or x -8, is greater than or equal to -5. So what we see is a -8. So how we're going to solve is an add 8. So we see subtraction. We're going to solve with addition. So we are now going to add 8 to both sides. The side of x, we get rid of it. -5 plus 8 is a +3. So now we have x is greater than or equal to 3. So we'd find that inequality down here, put it in the solution box. Now let's talk about graphing it. Because the inequality has that partial equal sign, you're going to want that closed dot above the 3. And because it's being pointing to the right, you're going to want to shade to the right. So let's go ahead and go to our last problem. And we can clearly see here, D matches our inequality from the previous question.